Imagine you wake up one morning and your small town has decided to conquer the entire world. No money, no allies, no powerful weapons, just discipline, strategy, and an absolute refusal to lose. This is not fiction. This is the true story of how a tiny city in Italy became the most powerful empire in human history. And inside this story, you will find some of the most powerful words in the English language. Act 1, the beginning. Around 753 BC, a small settlement sat on 7 hills beside a river in central Italy. It had no great army, no vast wealth, no remarkable resources. Its people were simple farmers and shepherds, living among wolves and mud. But this settlement had something invisible, something that would eventually make it unstoppable. It had ambition. The Romans were not content with what they had. They were not satisfied with their small patch of land beside the Tiber River. They looked outward, toward their neighbors, toward distant lands, toward the horizon, and they wanted more. This hunger for expansion was not random. It was organized. It was strategic. It was relentless. Rome did not grow through luck. Rome grew because its people understood one fundamental truth: that power must be built, maintained, and defended every single day. Their early kings were brutal but effective. Under King Tarquin, the Proud, Rome's last king, the city began to develop real infrastructure. Roads were built, temples were constructed, trade began to flourish. But the people of Rome grew tired of being ruled by a monarch. In 509 BC, they overthrew their king in a political revolution that would change everything. Rome became a republic. And with that transition, something remarkable happened. The citizens of Rome were no longer subjects of a king. They were participants in their own governance. 2 elected leaders called consuls would now share power, preventing any single man from becoming too dominant. It was an imperfect system. It was corrupt at times. It was chaotic often, but it was theirs, and they were fiercely proud of it. Act 2, the army that changed the world. A republic needs protection, and Rome built protection like no civilization before it. The Roman legion was not simply an army, it was a machine. Every soldier trained continuously. Every unit moved with precision. Every battle was approached not with emotion, but with cold, calculated strategy. Roman soldiers were famous for their psychological resilience. When they lost a battle, and they did lose battles, they did not collapse into despair. They reorganized. They analyzed their mistakes. They returned stronger. This quality, this ability to absorb defeat and rise again, is what historians call tenacity. And the Romans possessed it in extraordinary amounts. But the Roman military genius was not only about fighting, it was about engineering. When Rome encountered an obstacle, a river, a mountain, an enemy fortress, they did not retreat. They built their way through it. Roman engineers constructed roads across deserts, bridges over rivers, and walls along the frontiers of their empire. These were not temporary structures built in haste. These were permanent monuments to Roman determination, some of which still stand today, 2,000 years later. The famous Appian Way, one of Rome's earliest great roads, stretched over 500 kilometers from Rome to the south of Italy. Armies marched on it. Merchants traded along it. Information traveled through it. In a world without the internet, without telephones, without any modern communication, Rome built its own network, stone by stone, mile by mile. And through this network, their influence spread. Every road they built was a vein carrying Roman culture, Roman law, and Roman language into new territories. Every conquered land became Roman, not by force alone, but by integration. Act 3, Julius Caesar. For nearly 500 years, Rome functioned as a republic But republics are fragile things. They require balance. They require compromise. They require leaders who value the institution more than themselves. And in 100 BC, a man was born who would test that fragility to its absolute limit. His name was Gaius Julius Caesar. Caesar was not born into supreme power. He came from a patrician family, noble but not extraordinarily wealthy. What he possessed instead was something far more dangerous than money. He possessed charisma. People were drawn to Caesar instinctively. Soldiers followed him into impossible situations. The common people of Rome adored him. Even his enemies acknowledged his extraordinary intelligence. Caesar spent years in the field, fighting in Gaul, which is modern-day France, expanding Roman territory with brutal efficiency. He documented his own campaigns in elegant Latin prose, creating writings so sophisticated that students still study them today. But as Caesar's military victories grew, so did his political power. And as his political power grew, so did the fear inside the Senate. The senators watched him carefully. They saw how the crowds cheered when he passed through the streets. They saw how his soldiers were loyal not to Rome, but to Caesar personally. They saw the trajectory clearly, and they were terrified. A group of senators, led by men named Brutus and Cassius, began to meet in secret. Their conversations were quiet. Their plans were careful. Their intentions were clear. They believed that Caesar intended to make himself king. And in Roman culture, kingship was the ultimate betrayal of the Republic's values. On the 15th of March, 44 BC, a date that history would forever call the Ides of March, Julius Caesar walked into the theater of Pompey for a Senate meeting. He had been warned not to go that day. His wife Calpurnia had experienced terrible nightmares and begged him to stay home. A prophet had told him weeks earlier, "Beware the Ides of March." Caesar dismissed every warning. He entered the Senate chamber, and within moments, 23 senators surrounded him with concealed daggers. The most powerful man in the world fell to the Senate floor, his blood staining the marble beneath him. The senators believed they had saved the Republic. They were catastrophically wrong. Act 4. The Empire is born. Caesar's assassination did not restore the Republic. It destroyed it. The murder ignited a catastrophic civil war that tore Rome apart for 13 years. Friends became enemies. Allies became rivals. Roman legions fought Roman legions across the entire Mediterranean world. From this chaos, one man emerged victorious: Caesar's adopted son, Octavian. Octavian was not physically impressive. He was often ill. He was not a natural soldier, but he was extraordinarily patient. And in politics, patience is often more powerful than force. He waited. He watched. He made alliances carefully and broke them strategically. He eliminated his rivals one by one, not always through violence, but through intelligence and political maneuvering. By 27 BC, the civil wars were over. Rome was exhausted. The people wanted peace above everything else. The Senate gave Octavian an honorary title, a title that carried spiritual weight, a title that suggested he was something more than an ordinary man. They called him Augustus, meaning the revered one, the magnificent one. Augustus became Rome's first emperor, and under his rule, Rome entered its greatest era, an era of unprecedented peace, prosperity, and cultural achievement that historians call the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. For over 200 years, the Mediterranean world lived under Roman stability. Trade flourished. Art flourished. Philosophy flourished. The empire stretched from Britain in the north to Egypt in the south, from Spain in the west to Mesopotamia in the east. 60 million people lived under Roman rule, and at the center of it all, the eternal city of Rome itself, gleaming with marble, thundering with chariot wheels, alive with the voices of senators, merchants, priests, and slaves, all bound together by Roman law, Roman roads, and the Latin language that would one day evolve into English itself. The story of Rome is not simply ancient history, it is a mirror. Every empire that came after Rome, the Ottoman Empire, the Mongol Empire, the British Empire, studied Rome, copied Rome, feared becoming Rome's final chapter. Because Rome eventually did fall, not in a single dramatic moment, but slowly, gradually, over centuries of internal corruption, military overextension, and political instability. The greatest empire the world had ever seen collapsed under the weight of its own complexity, and in its ruins, it left behind something extraordinary: a language, a legal system, a concept of civilization that still shapes your world today. The word you are using right now, English, carries thousands of words directly inherited from Latin, the language of Rome. So in a very real sense, every time you speak English, you are speaking a small piece of Rome. Think about that. If this story gripped you, if you felt the weight of Caesar's assassination, the brilliance of Augustus, the extraordinary ambition of an entire civilization, then subscribe. Because next week, we are traveling east, to the Ottoman Empire, to a civilization that at its peak controlled 3 continents and 500 years of history. And the English words hidden inside that story are even more powerful than these. I will see you there.